leg and arm shaving. Not a big fan, really don't think it does anything, but I know we all quote the old specialized wind tunnel test. It's like 15 years old now, and probably the only research ever done. I don't think it's correct, but I'm going to do it anyway based on that study. Okay, so we're here in Milton. Night before, we're going to do some testing on the track. And this is actually our second testing session. The first testing session, I intended to do a video, but it was so incredibly humbling, and I was so lost for words that I had nothing to say in any positive manner. So this challenge is going to be actually extremely difficult. The reason I thought this challenge would be not that difficult, so to give some perspective, the Canadian 1 hour record stands at about 48.57 kilometers per hour, and that's held by Ed Veal from 2017, who's an excellent cyclist. But I looked at the number just on the surface, and I'm like, oh, 48.57. Well, I mean, I averaged that for 60K at Challenge Daytona. Well, here's the big problem. The Velodrome is only 250 meters, and there's a turn every 2 times in 250 meters, making it actually extremely difficult because, let's say, to go around 50 kilometers in 1 hour, that's about 400 turns in an hour. So it's, in terms of the forces on your body and the pedal stroke required in this environment, it's actually very, very challenging. 48.57 kilometers an hour is very, very challenging on the Velodrome. So it was humbling. So anyways, we're back again. I learned a lot of lessons in that first test. And so now, unfortunately, we're back again. We don't have a ton of technological changes because this stuff takes time now. For instance, one of the things I realized was I don't have enough gears. On this bike right now, I have a 58-tooth chainring and a 13-tooth rear cog, and that's a pretty massive gear. But I'm more of a grinder, and you know, I was on the Velodrome and I was pushing in order to get over 50 kilometers an hour with this gearing. It took me about 90 RPMs. Which for me is the absolute upper limit of my preferred cadence zones. And so I actually found it quite difficult to just hold the cadence, let alone the power required to break the record. And so that's something we have on order. Hopefully we'll be here by the end of the week, and then we'll be able to test in our session next week. And so that was one lesson. You know, another lesson, for instance, was these are clincher tires, and generally on the track, I mean, I'm very, very grateful that Ed was able to put this together for us quickly for a training set of rims. But on the track, you'll notice guys tend to prefer tubular, and the reason being they can really air those tires up. So I did some research on what would be the preferred pressure on the track for some of my weight, and it's about 140 psi. These are aired to 90, that's the maximum on this rim with the clincher, this size. And you can definitely feel that they're on a beautiful surface like the track with no bumps. This would be optimal if it was a bumpy surface or even less pressure. But on the track, you can tell that you want more pressure because it's going to be faster on the track. So that was another thing that I come to the realization.
I think it's exactly the same as last time. Right around there was the average.
So, anyways, good to... These are things you gotta think about, is the pressure and stuff, because if the track is slower today or faster today, it could very well be due to the atmospheric conditions. So, need to understand that, especially on the day of the performance. If it's a hard day or a slow day, rather, that's the same thing. If it's a fast day or a slow day, we need to know that and adjust accordingly. And then, of course, some of the other pieces UCI rules, another problem, which we don't have in triathlon that I'm starting to learn about. And people always give a fuss. You hear cyclists give a fuss about these things. And one, for instance, is I have a very long torso. And so actually, I went and I tested. I said, okay, I don't mind this position. And then I actually measured it to see if I could use the position. And it actually was quite too long. And so the rule is, I have this piece of tape here that I measured with a level up from the bottom bracket. So you always measure from the center of the bottom bracket. And the rule is you can be from the center of the bottom bracket to the tip of your extensions, measured up from here, you can be 75 centimeters. And this looks funny, right? Because it's usually you have like a more egg-shaped extension thing. I had to take it out because I was at 83 centimeters when I had the egg-shaped thing in there. And so even with this flat one, which is horrible aerodynamically, I'm still at 78 centimeters and I can't really come back anymore because I'm scrunching myself up. Fortunately, I'm close enough that you can claim, from my reading anyway, I don't know if this stuff will hold up, but from my reading, you can claim a morphological exemption and be allowed another 5 centimeters. So this would be legal if I'm granted the morphological exemption. I really can't come back anymore because I feel like I'm extremely scrunched up. So anyways, I hope that'll work. This is 78 centimeters. The rule, quote unquote, is 75. So anyways, I learned that. Interestingly, they have lots of rules with where the saddle can be. Fortunately, once again, because I do have a longer torso relative to my leg length, it depends on the reading. They say for sprinters, you can come up to a maximum of 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. This is exactly 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. Now it does say for up to 1K time trials that you can come up to the bottom bracket. So if that's how it's read, the UCI officials read it, for me being a 1 hour time trial, then this is well within the legal limit. So that was some of the things, and there was lots more, but that's all I'll go into now. Now this bike, if you're a biking enthusiast, this may look familiar to you. This at one point was the bicycle that held the 1 hour world record. This is actually, it's not the actual one, but there's multiples of this one. Canyon had to make multiple bikes for Alex Dowsett for his world record attempt, and it still even has the blacked out movie star logos on it. So this literally was made for Alex Dowsett when he went 52.9 kilometers an hour. I believe it was 2000, I want to say 17 or 18. So no excuses there. I mean, we know it can go 52.9 kilometers an hour. I don't know if these little legs and quads can do it, but we'll at least not have that excuse in the back of our head. So that's that. Another thing that we're going to change out that's not ideal for me, these are 172.5 cranks. I always run 165. Once again, we're just trying to get together quickly so I can get practicing, because it is going to be a very, very challenging goal. And so this is not ideal for me, once again, making that high cadence feel even harder. So that's some of the things I learned about in the first session, just related to the bike. Some of the things that I am going to test this session, which I guess were born in the last session, ideas. For instance, you always hear this idea, you got to hold the black line. I feel like from all the indoor training I've done, I'm not horrible at focusing on one thing for a long time and not moving or anything like that. But I think it's always good to have incentive, with real hard evidence of why you're doing something. And so first off, right off the bat, tomorrow in the warm-up at 260 watts, I'm going to test. I'm going to do 3 4K reps, where on first one I'm going to ride. So there's 3 lines. If you're not familiar with the track, there's the black line, which is the inside line. It's exactly 250 meters if you rode exactly on the black line. And then there's a blue line,
what is
wrong,
which is a little bit off of that, maybe a foot off of that. And then there's a red line, which is even further off of that. And so I'm going, actually there is no blue line, I made that up.
He has consistently denied what is
Wrong.
a very...
There's just a black and a red line. Hey, it's new to me too. The blue line's imaginary in my head tomorrow.
What is
Wrong.
a very...
So we're gonna do 3 4K efforts at 260 in the warm-up. First one, I'm gonna ride right on the red line and get a time for 4K. Then I'm gonna ride in the middle of the two, which is why I said the blue line, the imaginary blue line, in the middle of the red and the black line.
What is
Wrong.
a very...
I'm gonna ride as close to that as I can for 4K at 260. Get a time for that 4K. Then I'm gonna ride as close as I can on the black line for 4K, get a time for that. And then that'll at least give me some incentive, so when I am pushing in the race, in the effort, I'll know, oh, if I deviate to the middle for a full 4K, this is how much time I'm gonna lose. I'll have to extrapolate it, obviously, due to the speeds and the amounts of time, so it'll be less actually time. Okay, so first little testing phase complete. Warmed up for like 5 minutes, and then I did, as I said in the previous video, started off with 4K riding the red line. I pushed exactly 250 watts. That 4K took 5 minutes, 36 seconds. 1K easy spin, and then same thing, I just skipped the middle because I don't really care, and I did riding as best as I could on the black line. That 4K, 5 minutes, 32 seconds, so 4 seconds faster going from riding the red to the black. So that's one of the tests that I want to run. And then another one, and this is a big one, this is one that is going to be a huge problem for me, and this is something I learned in my first session, is just how far off my position is relative to the Pro Tour guys who've done this, like Victor Campagnards, Bradley Wiggins, Alex Dowsett. My position is like nowhere near as developed as these guys' positions, because I'm not going anywhere near 53 kilometers an hour, and I'm pushing, this is literally the crank that Alex Dowsett was training on, because this is what Canyon sent with the bike, because this is what he was sponsored by for that attempt. And so I'm literally riding the same crank, and I'm literally pushing 420 watts on it, and I'm going like 3 kilometers an hour slower on it. So position in aerodynamics for me as the rider is playing a massive role, I believe, in this stuff. And so right off the bat, what's the first thing we can do if we don't have to change anything position-wise? Well, I found myself, and David analyzed some videos Aaron had taken, and I was, for whatever reason, was riding really with my head up. And so the next test we're going to do in the warm-up, we're doing them all at 260 because I know I can just sustain that all day and keep on target. For the next test after we do those line tests is going to be 4K, where I ride and I actually make a conscious effort to look up like this as far ahead as I can for 4K, 12, how many laps is 4K on the track? 16 laps. And then just easy spin for 2 laps, and then same thing, try and hold the same lines and really turtle my head and see if there's any differences. And so logically you would think bringing the head down brings the surface area down, brings the time down. And then, as I said, I wanted to test head as high up as I could, and it actually kind of hurt my neck. I was like looking as far up as I could, holding the black line. That 4K was 5 minutes 32 seconds, so exactly the same as when I did the little test of riding the black line. But then the interesting one was doing that same test, but turtling my head as best I could down and not looking very far forward, just looking whatever 6 feet in front or something. And that 4K at exactly 250 watts was 5 minutes 29 seconds. So that seems to be probably for gains. Obviously the black line you always want to hold, it's obvious. And then turtling the head, also obvious, but now I actually have a little bit of data, so you could argue if you were going to go 50K, that's 12 and a half times 4K. You could argue then that it's 12 and a half times that difference from head up to head down, so it's about 37 and a half seconds, which is almost half a kilometer further. And then the same difference riding the red line to the black line was 4 seconds, times 12 and a half is 50 seconds. So that as well is over half a kilometer further going from red to black line. So good for my knowledge now. Now I know that this is a game of inches, and I know riding the black line and turtling my head as best I can are going to, potentially add up to 600 meters, 700 meters more distance. So very important. And then we'll wrap it up. This is getting us to about an hour and 15 minutes. And then we're gonna wrap it up. I still have to do a bike workout too. And so we're gonna wrap it up. I don't have the gears to do a huge session because, like I said, I can't really get it much over 400 watts. So we're going to do 2 times 12 and a half kilometers. So my goal is to go around 50 kilometers. 2 times 12 and a half, so 2 times a quarter of my goal for the event. With about 10 minutes recovery in between, and we'll be looking to basically go as much power as I can comfortably hold with this this cadence that I am going to have to put up, so approximately 88 RPMs. When I get the bigger gear, I'm going to want to do that same workout, 88 RPMs, but I'm going to want to do it with 61 by 13, or at least 60 by 13, which hopefully that'll get me closer to 51 and a half kilometers an hour for the interval. So that's the 2-hour session. I mean, this stuff ain't cheap. It's $500 for 2 hours of time. So it's like I got to learn all this stuff as quickly as possible because the bankroll is deteriorating quickly. Okay, so test session number 2 is done. Really great session. Definitely starting to feel very comfortable on the track. Starting to lower my head a bit more. Not really, actually the first time ever where I forgot where I was, and didn't know which side was where I started because I was just so lost going in circles, not really even aware of my surroundings, which is actually really cool, really a fun experience to just be fully engaged with pushing yourself. So after we did our testing sessions with the bunch of aerodynamic things and then the starts, then I did the workout portion, and for that I did quarter 12 and a half kilometer tempo. This time my legs were really good compared to last time. I was able to hold the upper bound of my cadence range with this gearing, and I averaged 418 watts, and then I did 12 and a half K in 15 minutes and 1 second. And I was a little bit taken aback by that because I pushed last week 402 and did the 12 and a half K in 15:06.
And so it was a bit perplexing to me to basically push, you know, like 16 more watts, but go only 5 seconds faster over that distance. So the one thing I did change is I had inserted 20 mil spacer to raise the pads. So then real quick, Aaron and I took the spacer out, 20 mils out, and then I did another 12.5K tempo at, I tried to get it to 418 again, but I got it to 419, so I guess it confounds it a little bit, but I went 4 seconds faster than the previous one, so 1457 for 12.5. So in my mind, with one more watt, I mean, it's pretty well negligible, the 20 mils. I mean, I'll probably keep them out because I want the 4 seconds if it's there, which multiplied by 4 is 16 seconds, which is actually about almost 250 meters further. So anyways, that was interesting, and then we're out of time. So it ended up being a very good workout. A few new things in my head reverberating around to test next time, and then next time we will have, hopefully, the finished product. We'll have double disc wheels, the fastest track tires available, aired up to 140 psi, aero chain ring, either 60 or 61 tooth big ring. We'll keep it with a 13. We'll keep that chain on for training. We won't put the good chain on, and then we'll narrow these front end just a little bit more and test that. So still lots of fun to be had.